Hello everyone, Forest Focus. The international break begins to wind down and we switch our attention back to Premier League and Nottingham Forest bid to climb the table. With that in mind, I want to have a look at the next 6 games for all the teams at the bottom to ask what the table will look like come Christmas. So we'll do that and discuss a couple of players, including promotion winner James Garner, in the company of, first of all, Pete Blackburn. Morning, Pete. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right, thank you. Aside from the vicious temperature drop that we just discussed before starting, that left me feeling a bit sort of, well, I guess, contemplating the meaning of life on my dog walk this morning. Otherwise, all right.
Was that bleak, was it? It is pretty freezing.
It was pretty bleak, yeah.
Well, good to have you with us. Good to have Michael Temple with us. How are you doing, Temps?
I don't mind the cold, but the winter knitwear comes out. You don't have to iron your shirts anymore. They can be hidden. Not that Matt Davies wears a shirt for work. Just a massive Paul Smith hoodie.
What is it saying? It's Adidas. This is yeah. But yeah, I don't know the last time I ironed. I don't even know where the iron is in our house, actually, to be honest. So yeah.
Surprise, surprise.
Exactly. Right.
I'm looking forward to your appearance at the awards on Thursday night. Is it going to be the most creased suit in Christendom?
I'm not even wearing a suit this time, I don't think. I think I'm just just a decent shirt. And yeah, I don't think I fit in. We're going off on a tangent before we even started. I don't think I'll even fit into the shirt, the suit, the trousers, probably lose the shoes again. Yeah. Last year I had to buy shoes on the way to the train station for 75 quid. And then I found them the next day when I got back.
Classic.
I know, exactly. Right, so on the agenda today, as mentioned, we'll do a little bit on James Garner towards the end because he was linked with us. We'll do the fixtures for us and the other teams at the bottom and see what the league table will look like come Christmas. Maybe there's some hopeless optimism, maybe there's not. And we'll also talk Elliot Anderson. In fact, we'll start with Elliot Anderson. Feels like he had a very good international break, a good performance, a good rest. 2 calls saying Temps as well. That he and Declan Rice are currently the first choice pairing. I mean, he's set up very nicely now, isn't he, for the run into the next international break in March?
I think we'll have inquiries for Elliot Anderson in January. I think he's on the shopping list of top clubs in Europe and abroad. And ultimately, I think at this stage, you have to say it's probably likely, if not highly likely, that he leaves in the summer. I don't think he'd fancy dipping out in January, though. I think ultimately he wants to end up back at Newcastle United, right? You can kind of feel where he might end his playing days. But I'd like to think there's a move for him between now and then, and he ends up playing in a Man City side or a Liverpool side or somewhere where he's going to be able to claim honours on a regular basis. I think he's highly rated by everybody in the Premier League. He's a thinking man's footballer, does everything so well. Shoo-in for the World Cup, shoo-in for Forest the rest of the season, will be tested in the next transfer window, and sadly I think he disappears in the summer.
Thank you very much to Andy for being a member for 22 months. Appreciate that. Yeah, it's interesting, Pete. I saw a transfer video. I think it was the United stand or something. Ben Jacobs, I don't know if you've seen it, getting sort of not very cryptic at all, saying that he thinks Anderson's got a release clause that kicks in the summer, I think, for clubs that are in the Champions League. And if we are in Europe, and he was saying, he can go for less than 100 million and all that kind of stuff. I mean, do you see him going in January, in the summer, or does he stay? I mean, we all thought Morgan would go and he stayed and Murillo's still here. Where are you at with Anderson's future?
I think I'd be pretty surprised if he went in January. I think largely because deals like that don't tend to get done in January. It's going to be a very significant deal. I guess the only way is that perhaps if someone wants to get ahead of the playing field, perhaps that is an option. But I mean, I think generally speaking, clubs have probably used a lot of that PSR headroom and all that sort of stuff. And I'd be surprised if it's something that happens in January. Also, I think he seems the type who's probably going to want to just keep ticking over at Forest in a place where it's all working out well for him during a year that's enormously important for his career with the internationals coming up. It feels to me like it would be a sensible decision just to keep doing what you're doing in a place where it's all going well and then assess things in the summer. I wouldn't be in any great rush if I was him. I might be in a great rush if I was one of the clubs chasing him, though, because I don't think there's a team in the Premier League and probably not a team in world football that wouldn't benefit enormously from what he can bring to a team. I mean, a friend of the show, Boynesy, sent some stats around last night after he came on at 75 minutes in that game. And he'd had the 6th most touches, I think, behind only the defenders and Jude Bellingham. And I think he'd had more passes than everybody, more accurate passes than everybody in the team, apart from the back four, who obviously were just nipping it around between them for a lot of that game. 96% completion rate, something along those lines. I think he'd had 10, 11, 12 more than Wharton in the game. And it's just, it's nuts when you watch him come on. I think we take it for granted so much now, but he just lifts the tempo instantly. It's just absolute business mode straight away. He wins the ball, he progresses it, and he pumps those passes through the lines and out wide. The tempo is just so much better instantly. The difference he makes to any team, I think, would be pretty nuts right now. And as things stand, the opposition's often putting two players pressing on him, seeing if they can, take him out of the game. And he just wriggles through those challenges and then he's gone. It seems like there's almost nothing that he can't do, apart from what everyone is always criticising him about, that he doesn't score enough goals or whatever. But if he was having a significant impact in the goals tally, then he'd be the best midfielder in the world, and we wouldn't be talking about 100 million, we'd be talking about 200 million. So look, I think I went quite early on Elliot Anderson being worth £100 million and being the best player I've seen in my Forest lifetime and all that sort of stuff. In a way, I'm sort of wondering whether actually I was underhyping it, if anything. Now he just rises to every challenge and he's unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it.
Just on Anderson, there's an interesting couple of stats. First player to have 1,000 touches in the Premier League this season, and second most forward passes per 90 for any midfielder in the league. Interestingly, on the percentage of forward pass completion, Sangare shows up in these stats really well. I was looking at a graph the other day. Sangare's in about the top 10, I think, for forward pass completion. So the positive for him on a side note. Going back to Anderson temps, why would any player who's in the England squad now, especially him, want to move in January to another club where it might take him a period of settling in? He might not even get in the team. I think he would, but it would be so stupid for him to go in January, wouldn't it? Even if Forest were considering selling him.
Look, I think players sit there privately designing their future and just discussing with friends and agents or whatever how things might map out, and it won't be on his radar to leave in January. But I think the point I'm making is the inquiries will be made, the back channel discussions will commence, and those that are in the race to try and prize Elliot Anderson out of Forest in the summer will begin to assemble around that time. To Pete's point, they all cast forward and know that he's a big tournament in North America away from being even more highly coveted. And with that sample of statistical and site-based evidence that we've had of watching him play for as long as we have now, that's a low-risk signing for anyone, especially if they get him for less than £100 million. I think he could anchor a midfield for 10, 12 years in a kind of Michael Carrick style and just be an unsung hero in any team that he steps into. So it doesn't make sense for him to leave in January. It's not part of his plan, I don't think, but his ambition will be tested in the summer. Forest's ability to resist, 9-figure transfer fees will be tested. Oh, there's my headphone. Will be tested in the summer, and I think on balance, that's probably what I see. Been wrong before. I think we've all predicted Murillo and Morgan Gibbs-White disappearing out the door in the summer, but he's Forest's most valuable player right now, and he wasn't at this stage last year. He's earned it. He's catching the eye of a lot of football fans, managers, scouting teams now off the back of what he's done for us as consistently as he has. And even in a struggling team, he's been an absolute standout in the matches we played this year.
Just a quick question for you guys and for people in the chat, if you don't mind. I was thinking, watching him yesterday and just reflecting back on his sort of short England career, but rather impressive one. I think that one of the things that's mad about him is how he just seems to step into situations and just, he doesn't seem remotely flustered. I think how many people have come into the England national team and it's been, pretty hard work settling in a difficult environment and all that sort of stuff. I know it's different now because, the culture has been a lot better. But can you think of many England players who've ever come into the England team with just such ease and settled so well? To go from being someone that most of the most sort of England fans weren't even thinking about as necessarily even a squad player, let alone a starter, in however many games it is, 5 or 6 games, to being absolutely nailed on if he's fit. It's pretty crazy. I guess Rooney did that.
Yeah, I say it's generational strikers, isn't it? It's Rooney, Owen, who turned up with hype and delivered upon it. He's turned up under the radar, aside from those who've watched him play at Forest and the best part of 2 seasons and bossed it from the off. But yeah, to your point, he's in that bracket with those fellas who went on to be generational strikers in a good England team.
And he plays for Forest. It's worth just remembering that. That is remember where we were 4 or 5 years ago? That lad's playing for us. That is pretty special.
There's a comment here from James. Man United fans seem absolutely convinced that he's going there. I can't see it. They mentioned 70 million there. I mean, all things being equal, Pete, forgetting release clauses for now, because we don't know about that. I mean, what is his market value, do you think, right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to forget all the release clause type stuff, because obviously that's the thing that's going to make us look stupid, and that's where we were with Gibbs White. But if we do just get rid of all that sort of stuff, I mean, transfer fees are dictated by a few things. Obviously, the quality of the player and the contract length and all that sort of stuff. But there's also the position that the football club are in. So as long as we're in a position where we're looking a lot more stable and not a threat of relegation, I'm going to sort of assume that's going to be the case come the end of the season. After that, the big determining factor is who wants him and how many clubs are there, because, clearly that's going to drive a market for him. I think with Anderson, it seems obvious that anyone who's got room to manoeuvre financially is going to be after it, because you've got a transformational midfield player there who can play 6, 8, 10 very happily, can make an impact for you as an absolute regular, but also someone who can cover for other players. He looks pretty indestructible, touch wood, fingers crossed with injury and that sort of side of things. I just don't see a downside. So look, I just honestly, in a sort of fair market where we haven't hamstrung ourselves with any clauses and that sort of stuff, I can't see how it's less than £100 million.
There's a comment here from Phil. I'll just put it on the screen. Why can't Forest build a team without selling off our better players? I think
because of the rules. We can't.
Because of PSR, we probably just have to sell. We sold Brennan, we sold Elanga. We've kept players around that. But to me, that's the reason we have to sell one of them, Phil, I think, to stay within PSR. I mean, we shelled out 200 million quid, so that's why I think that one of these players will go. And I imagine it's Anderson, because there'll be so many teams going in for him and probably have a bidding war. So same question, Temps. If you were putting a value on him, what would it be?
If he's Forest's first £100 million sale, we're happy, aren't we? Even if we dive into comparisons to others that have gone for more or less the relative impact, the age that he's at. Let's not remember, we part chopped him for Blakodimos on the way in. So financially, we're going to be on the upside in a significant way. Has to be reinvested cautiously. And yeah, isn't it a shame that you now cannot have a glut of players that come through, be it through your academy or through really considered trading, and build a side? The system is rigged to enable the bigger clubs to get bigger. PSR benefits those that can generate huge amounts of match day income, can perpetuate the broadcast income through European qualification. And yeah, it's a shame that when you find yourself a little spine like Forest have at this moment in time, with high value players in Murillo, Morgan Gibbs-White and Elliot Anderson, it seems an extremely remote possibility that they all begin next year in the squad.
Yeah, I mean, it is possible that you sell Morgan or you sell Murillo and you keep Anderson or something like that. There's ways and means of doing it. I just don't think that personally we keep all of them, but obviously I would certainly love to. One more on Anderson, just as a player. Just before that, I was going to say, when Arsenal signed Declan Rice, he was 24 and he was 100 million. I don't think he got many England caps then. So that was, I would say, 100 million as well for Anderson.
Anderson's a comfortably better player now than Rice was then, in my opinion. That's a big shout, but I genuinely think he is.
That's interesting. I don't know. I don't remember how good
he was. I genuinely think he is better than Rice was then.
Interesting. So one more on Anderson then, Pete. A couple of people in the comments on a video recently, I did the other day on Anderson, said, I said he was the best midfielder in the Premier League, best central midfielder, and they said he can't be, he doesn't score goals. What would you say to that argument that he doesn't put up goals and assists, Pete?
Well, he's playing as a 6. It's not his job to do that, and he's doing everything else better than every other player in the Premier League right now. I don't think there's pretty much not a metric that you would use to define the performance of a deep-lying central midfield player that he isn't top of in the Premier League. So that answers the question for you, I think. And I said earlier, if you have Elliot Anderson from that position contributing a meaningful amount of goals, being towards the top of a club's top scorer list through a season, you're talking about astronomical quality and a player who's going to break transfer records. I don't really understand what more people need to see from a footballer, to be honest. I think the only contender probably is Caicedo right now. And the only difference between them is that Caicedo has had a little bit of a sort of an early haul of goals, hasn't he? But I don't think that's something that's going to be sustainable. And also Anderson's doing other parts of the game as well or better than him. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think maybe some people just have a mindset where they're always looking for something else. When it comes to Elliot Anderson, I'm just in every single moment, watching him, enjoying him, marveling at him, frankly, because it's obviously not going to be forever. And I've never seen anything like it at the City Ground. So, yeah, I'm not sure what they're looking for, but I don't see how it's realistic to ask for anything else.
But the blend in the England team, the blend in any team he's recruited to, I suppose the blend and what's expected of him at Forest is that in the perfect design of how the team functions, he doesn't have to score. And he makes those that can more likely to because he's positionally aware. He knows when to run. He knows when to recycle, tries the creative passes as well, has extreme vision. But if he's in a central midfield mix with a Cole Palmer, for example, he'll be better at scoring goals, and Elliot Anderson will ensure that he can go about his job correctly. So I don't think it's a required part of his game. It addresses it informs the mix and who he's on the pitch with. I don't think Forest would ever pitch him in a central midfield three with, Dominguez, Sangare, Yatesy, whoever, because they profile a little bit closer and goal scoring isn't really part of their game. But I think he allows you to pick two more likely goal scorers in central midfield, whether that's for club or country. And that's as essential a part of the mix when you're putting together a trophy-winning midfield.
Yeah.
Matt, it reminds me, I remember Tim Vickery used to say something, I know he probably still does. I used to listen to that sort of overnight pod he does with Dotun Adebayo, which I think is still going, is it? I'm not sure. The World Football Phone-In. He used to say that in a midfield three, the way that they see it in South America, I think, is that you have one to get it, one to give it, and one to go. Elliot Anderson is doing all three of those things for Nottingham Forest already. If you want him to do all three of those things and then finish the chance at the end, I think you're asking quite a lot. For me, he's an absolute, complete modern-day centre mid, and I think we should just accept that. And he's basically perfection right now.
I watched the early knockings of Declan Rice. Actually, I was at London Stadium in that season when he was breaking through at West Ham. I think the difference between them is Declan was a very forceful runner with the ball even then, wasn't he? He'd pick it up, run in straight lines, beat one or two, and power into the final third. But the creativity, the vision, the range of passing that Elliot Anderson has now, the manner in which he dispossesses, particularly opposing central midfielders, I think is what sets him apart. So slightly different, but the prospect of having those two at the base of an England midfield to our discussion about blend and quality, I think gives us a real high chance. I know this is an England football podcast, but I think having seen the manner in which we've gone about our business as a national side in the games that Elliot has broken in for, gives me far more confidence than I had before his debut that we can get to the very last knock-ins of that tournament.
I think if he played as a kind of driving number 8 Steven Gerrard type midfielder, he wouldn't score as many goals as Gerrard, but he would get some. He doesn't get into the box that much. A lot of the time, he's the guy on the corner of the triangle on the left wing setting up the cross, or he's putting the odd cross in, but he's rarely shooting. So,
I think the criticism is fair in a sense that when he is in those positions, which he has been for England a fair bit actually, he's managed to get himself up the pitch and in and around the box. His shots are often quite telegraphed, I guess. They're often blocked pretty easily, and perhaps he's not choosing the sort of perfect moment. So it's probably true that he's not a natural goal scorer in that sense right now. I think he'll probably improve, and it's worth bearing in mind that he's really not played very much football in the grand scheme of things. He's a bit of a late bloomer in the sense that he never really got the shot at Newcastle that you'd think his talent deserved, and he's come in here and been straight into the thick of it. But it's not been his isn't a career where he's already had 4, 5, 6 seasons where he's been playing a lot of football. So there's plenty of time for improvement from him as well.
Yeah, and his current midfield balance does depend on other players scoring, and now Morgan's hopefully getting a few. That'll help. A few more from wingers. We might do a bit on Dan and Ndoye if we've got time at the end. But if Anderson chips in he's got 1 goal, which was a penalty, but they still count. If he can get 5 goals this season and 5 or 6 assists and play like he has, then he's going to have had a great season. The onus is as much on the other players around him to step up and score, and we'll get into where we are in the league. But hopefully we're making positive strides in that area, certainly. Just before we move on then, quick word for the Trent Navigation, a couple of upcoming gigs. There is a Take That Christmas party, Friday, December the 12th. Funboy 2 are also on the bill there as well. That is doors at 7 p.m. and also coming up, Legends of Rock on the 28th of November at 7 p.m. 15 quid or a bit more on the door if you pay on the night. Just quickly on midfielders then before we move on to fixtures. Some chat and someone messaged me saying, can you talk about James Garner? I see he's been linked by Pete O'Rourke, who does get some stuff bang on transfer-wise. He's out of contract at Everton in the summer, having a very good season. Temps. David Moyes was talking him up for England, playing central midfield, can do a good job at right back. As a free agent in next summer, would he be a really good addition if it came off?
I don't think he improves the starting 11. I think he's a player you'd like and have around the squad and does a good job. Would you proactively go and recruit him rather than keep hold of some of the players that we've got at the moment? Not sure that we would. I think we have 1 too many central midfielders on the books, so there'll be 1 out for me naturally without the need to recruit. If there were 2 out and it addressed the balance, we might need to bring 1 in. What he did for Forest on his loan was outstanding in a championship team that also featured Brennan on the way up, Jed Spence on the way up. I think he really did stand out that season. Is it a little bit of a romantic one, bringing someone back 4 years on that helped you at a particular moment in time? Probably. So it's nothing against James Garner. What a job he did for us when he was there. But I don't think he'd be even in the top 10 on my shopping list at this point in time.
Dyche does know him though, Pete, doesn't he? Obviously.
Yeah, I like James Garner a lot. I think I fundamentally agree with Temp's sort of initial point that he isn't somebody who I would say, if we're signing him to be a first choice starting midfielder, then that's major progression for us. Albeit, I think it's worth considering the fact that we might all have to be slightly realistic with our expectations in terms of progression in central midfield once we do sell Elliot Anderson, if we do, because that's going to be pretty difficult. I think it's not impossible that we have a summer of quite big change in midfield. We're obviously expecting it's pretty likely that Anderson might move on. I think there's always going to be talk around Sangare, same about Dominguez. I think it's quite possible that we'll see a fair bit of change there. And if Garner was a realistic option at a reasonable price, I'll be perfectly happy with him being one of our sort of first choice replacements. I think he brings really good attributes defensively. I think he's putting up good numbers for tackles, interceptions, blocks, clearances, all that sort of stuff. I don't think he's contributing as much in terms of progressing the ball and the sort of attacking impact that he can have. I do think he's quite a classy footballer. He'd obviously bring set-piece quality to us, I think something that we lack significantly currently. So I'd be really happy with him as a squad player if it all worked out financially and if there was room. But the problem I think we are going to face this summer is when we sell Elliot Anderson, it's going to be a different conundrum to normal. You can't sell Elliot Anderson and then find a player who, I say you can't, I think it's very unlikely to find a player who we just pigeonhole as his replacement and then someone who in a year's time will be putting up sort of similar performances. My instinct is that we replace Elliot Anderson with 2 central midfielders, one who's an elite ball winner and one who's an elite progressor, either with the ball or without the ball, getting us up the pitch. I just don't see how we're going to get all of those things answered in one midfielder because I think Elliot Anderson's a generational footballer and there's not many of them about. So my instinct would be you're probably going to be looking for a sort of a João Gomez ball winner and then someone who can play the ball forward or run between the lines. And yeah, that would leave Garner as a replacement rather than a first choice for me.
You watched the other night when I said about João Gomez. Did you see that then?
No, but I mean, he's on all the sort of recruitment lists that I and like-minded people have got. I think he was. He's sort of obvious, isn't he? He tops all those metrics. Same as Florentino Luis, who I'd said in our pre-season recruitment podcast at Burnley. Now he's a similar sort of mould, I think.
Yeah, I said João Gomez and Ndoye at Wolves. They're probably their only two good players. Well, Strand Larsen's decent as well.
I think they're both brilliant and will both be good players for us. The only issue with that is that you then don't really have anyone breaking the lines in terms of moving with the ball. And Andre is like an absolute pass master, but he's not really going to get around the pitch much. He's going to be doing that in the same sort of area as Gomez. So it would have to be quite a different team, I think, and you'd need more output from the three behind the striker. But both brilliant players.
Right, good chat. Let's talk fixtures then. So this is what I wanted to discuss. We were all talking about, obviously, the relegation zone, the upcoming games. Will we be out the relegation zone soon? So I went and got the fixtures. I ripped this off from Fantasy Football Hub, I think it's from, for the upcoming games for each team at the bottom of the league, going down from, I did the cut-off at Fulham. I know Newcastle are struggling, but I think they'll be climbing the table soon. So the upcoming fixtures are on screen for Fulham, Wolves, Burnley, us, Leeds and West Ham. They're listed like this because, according to Fantasy Football Hub, that's the order of difficulty. So they think Fulham have got the easiest run, then Wolves, then Burnley, then us, then Leeds, then West Ham. People can dispute some of those fixtures, like Palace.
Sunderland is like the easiest fixture on that whole.
They've got Sunderland down as an easy fixture. So I don't buy into some of these personally. I think Newcastle and Man City should be the other way around. I think Newcastle away are decent. Palace are listed too softly as well, I think. But that's the principle of it anyway. So those are the upcoming fixtures. That takes us up till Christmas. So I asked the chaps, and I did it myself as well, to predict how many points each team will get in this upcoming period. Play along in the chat if you want. And then I've done a predicted league table for Christmas. So I'll ask each lad what they think. Starting with Temps. What are your thoughts on our games, first of all, in that bracket? I know this isn't an exact science, everyone, by the way, but it's just a bit of fun. But Temps, how do you think we'll fare in the next 6? Well, you're muted. Don't know why you're muted.
Back to COVID days. There we go. You're on mute. I predicted 8 points from 6 for Forest. I think we'll beat Brighton and Wolves. I think well 2 wins, 2 draws, 2 defeats is the prediction from me, and I think Fulham can match that points tally on this run. I think Leeds and West Ham, despite the given the challenges of their fixtures, will struggle to come out with more than 2 points from that run. So I think we gain ground on all of our closest relegation rivals, if I can use that phrase, aside from Fulham, who I fully expect to match our points tally. But yeah, I do see us progressing from that group in this period.
Random Pete comment in the chat. I don't know about that Utrecht thing. I'll check it out. Maybe the club might say something on that, but we'll have a look at it, certainly. Pete, how do you think we'll fare? The 6 games, obviously, Liverpool, Brighton. For people who are listening but not watching, I should say, Liverpool away, Brighton at home, Wolves away, Everton away, Tottenham home, Fulham away, and we played 2 European games in that time as well. We've got Malmo and who's the other one? I don't know. We've got another game anyway. Is it Utrecht, I think? So yeah, there's just so people are aware, there's the extra context there. But how many points for us from those 6, Pete?
Sorry, I was just scrabbling to find the picture I sent you because I couldn't remember what I actually said. Well, boringly enough, I've got the same number as Temps, so I've also got 8 points for Forest, which is a bit of a shame because we could have had a nice debate. But I think I'm also predicting basically the same results as Temps. So I expect them all to be wrong, but I'm sort of vaguely feel like it'll be something around 8 points. And Brighton and Wolves feel like the most obvious potential 3-pointers, I guess. But I think, to be honest, all of those 5, apart from Liverpool, and hopefully I'll be proven to be mad, just like last year, feel like games that could really go in any direction. And if we're in a good place and continuing to grow, then they're all games where, I wouldn't be enormously surprised if we come away with points. So, I think the scope of what this could be is actually quite large. But yeah, for me, 2 wins, a couple of draws and a couple of defeats feels probably about right. And I think we'd have to be happy with that, particularly in the context of what I've given the other teams, which is pretty brutal in a couple of occurrences.
Yes, we'll go on to that in a bit more detail. There's 256 people watching, which is great because there's not much to talk about, really, is there?
Don't tell them that. It's all crucial stuff.
Yeah, but I appreciate everyone being with us, and do hit like if you haven't already. I mean, I've also got us down for 8 points. I agree with Pete. It might not happen this way, but 8 or 9. I think, lose to Liverpool, beat Brighton, beat Wolves, draw with Everton, draw with Spurs, lose to Fulham. I put down here, certainly. Just on a couple of those games then, is there extra onus on Brighton and Wolves, Temps, where you look at it and think if we don't get results there, it puts a bit of pressure on us or not?
Especially because the sequencing, we don't want to get into runs of defeats where it becomes self-perpetuating. You feel the need to experiment, to deviate from plan A, to try things, to rotate, to change the personnel. If we have a win early on in this sequence, I think it backs the feeling that we have that 4-2-3-1 is the way. It backs the selections that we have, the players that logically deserve to start, continue to start. I just think when you get on a bad run and you seek to experiment, it can often be counterproductive and harder to tweak from that point. So, yeah, if we were to lose to Liverpool and then to beat Brighton, you go to Wolves, Everton, Spurs with more of a confidence in the shape, the tactical setup, and the selection, and you can beat that prediction. I think less than 6 points, and you're not really progressing, are you, from this pack? And you certainly don't want to be there at Christmas. This is a real opportunity to move. I think and hope that we will take it. But teams can spring surprises. West Ham's recent form, a couple of the results that Leeds had before they came to our place and looked extremely ordinary. That these games will not always go as predicted. But I actually think predicting the points from a bracket of games is probably slightly easier than pulling out a particular result. To Pete's point, we could gather 8 points from various different combinations across this stretch, but it's a chance to gain ground on those teams around us. This is an essential mini league at this point in the season. Let's get to Christmas and look up.
Yeah, I agree. Let me just try and put this on. Is it going to work? No, it's not going to work. I did put it in the wrong section. I'll come back to it. That was the current Premier League table. Just looking at the teams quickly, Pete, I've got Fulham down for 8 points. I think with that run and the bit of extra quality, they'll be all right. But do you think that's the case? I mean, Silva's under some pressure there. Could we see them really slide or not?
I've got them down for 5 points and definitely less optimistic about their hopes than you guys are. I know that. Look, I'm not having Sunderland as being the brightest green fixture on that tracker. That seems mad to me. Clearly, they'll say 15, 16, 17 game weeks are good opportunities for them. But I mean, this Fulham team, do you expect them to get much out of playing Crystal Palace wherever the game is? I'm not sure. And also, I'm not expecting us to lose to them. So, I don't know. I don't personally think that they look particularly impressive right now. They seem a little bit like a team that has had a manager for quite a long time and hasn't had an awful lot of progression in terms of recruitment and such like. And I just think that they seem to be sort of, I don't want to say going nowhere, but just in a bit of a sort of, in a bit of a foggy period where it doesn't seem like they're doing an awful lot and the quality's not really there. So yeah, I've got them down for 5 actually, rather than your 8, which would be nice because it would. If things play out how I've said, then we're getting more points than all of these other teams. So I might be being a bit optimistic, but who knows?
Yeah, maybe we are being overly optimistic. Who knows? Indeed, that's the current league table, by the way. I think people know it, but if we were to get 8 from 6, that would put us on a point per game, which I think is probably what we need to get to me by Christmas to hopefully build from there. That'll be something to aim for. Certainly, I think Paul said that as well recently. Just looking at the other teams, then as we go down, I'll do it in the order of this table on screen for those who are watching or listening. Wolves, Temps, new manager. I mean, I think they're absolutely god-awful on their dooms, but can you make a case for them picking up under Rob Edwards?
No, because of the playing group. I don't think it's the manager that got, or the new manager that will get Wolves relegated. The group of players is underperforming and lacking certain weaponry. So, yeah, they look to be in real trouble, Wolves. And for a team that got recruitment right for so long, it's a warning for many as to how quickly it can unravel if the balance is upset and you get on a bit of a bad trot. So no, I think Wolves have got real challenges this season.
I've got Burnley, Pete, down for. I've got 1 point here, but maybe I'm feeling like I'm being generous. I mean, Chelsea home, Brentford have got a really good home record. As you say, Palace are a good side. I think one of these might be midweek, and Palace have got a lot of fixtures. Newcastle are good at home. I think Fulham. I still think Fulham will beat them, and then Bournemouth is a tough fixture to go to. I mean, some of these teams, if we're right, and which we hope we are, Burnley and a couple of others are going to be in a really sticky trot. Possibly, do you think?
Yeah, well, I've got them down for 1 point as well. Again, how much of that is just sort of prescribing my hopes onto this, I'm not sure. But it does look hard, and there's just no games there where I'm considering them the favourites, I suppose. So, yeah, I've got them down for 1 point. I think the playing squad is pretty functional. I think there's a couple of players in that I really like, but there's not an enormous amount of quality, and I also haven't got a huge amount of time for the manager. On Wolves, I think the big question about Wolves is what's the state of things culturally. A new manager, pretty much any new manager, should improve them a little bit because they've got enough of a spine of a team, particularly in the two centre mids that we discussed earlier, and a striker who's very good for the level, that they should be able to pick up from where they have been, which is absolutely dreadful. However, if the culture is as rotten as you feel like it might well be there, given the sort of relationship between the fans and the ownership and lack of investment and this sort of constant trawl of players out and then less good players coming in, then that would make me feel that they're sort of doomed. But I do think that's the overwhelming factor with teams that we're looking at this stage. If things are just rotten, then you're goners. I've got Wolves getting 3 points from that run.
Just you're one of the. This is a side point on Wolves. Like I wonder, we've discussing João Gomez, Andre, World Cup year. Do they get to January and say, "I'd like a move"? Strand Larsen, I don't know if he's in the Norway team, but they've just qualified for a World Cup for the first time in forever. Does he want to strengthen his hand? Rob Edwards can't really turn around to them and say, show some loyalty here, lads, can he? Because he's just jumped ship from Middlesbrough. So I wonder if that'll be a conversation in January or not. But yeah, I think they're pretty stuffed. Temps, Leeds. Pete thinks Farke's going to get the sack. I look at that running games. I think he probably is as well. I mean, for people who are listening again, not watching, they've got Villa home, City away, Chelsea home, Liverpool home, Brentford away, Palace home. It feels like their chance of survival seem like they rest on their home form. Tricky home fixtures there. I've got them down for a couple of points here. Do you think Farke's in a lot of bother?
He was getting stick before the Forest game, wasn't he? He was under pressure then, and it was a divided fan base. If he'd have won that game, he could have been comfortably, was it 14th? Would Leeds have got to with the win on that day? But they looked awful. And I think what Leeds fans have to frame is his mission isn't to finish mid-table; it's to survive by any means in the first year back in the Premier League. And such is the disruption of changing a manager mid-season in a relegation battle that I don't particularly think a change of manager without massive bracking in the transfer window in January would make too much difference. So I think Leeds' best chance of survival is to stay with Farke. I think that they need to support the realistic mission that 17th place in the Prem is everything for a newly promoted club. Don't get carried away by what Sunderland are doing. That's rare, impressive, but rare. And just understand that they're, despite being a one club city with past glories comparable to ours, no one has a divine right to stay in the Premier League. They need to stick together because in the game against Forest at the City Ground, they didn't show anything to suggest that they're not relegation candidates. So yeah, could go either way that one. I sense they may well make a change, but again, it's the players and the level of performance that will take them down if they offer as little as they did at our place in the second half.
I listened to a bit of a Leeds pod, Pete, after the game with Graham Smith, who was on here. It was interesting. He was saying, and the other guys were saying, I think Farke's instinct to try and play football when he was at Norwich. Leeds have signed her a team that, I'm not saying they can't play football, but they're big and physical. And they were saying they need to be more Route 1 and more ugly. And they were pretty ugly at Forest. So they they were basically saying that they think there'll be a change. I mean, if Leeds, I just can't see them getting points in these games. Villa look a much better team. Obviously, could be completely wrong, but I think they're in a bit of trouble, aren't they?
I mean, I would have them as rank outsiders in every single one of those games, and obviously that doesn't really mean anything. But it's hard to see it. I've optimistically given them 2 points because I think they do have a bit of sort of battling spirit about them, and also there's the Ellen Road factor that people like to talk about. However, I guess there's a question remaining as to what is going to be left of Ellen Road after the Forest Focus boys are there on Thursday night ripping the place up.
God.
So we'll see.
What are you planning?
Sorry, if the police are watching, that was not a real threat. I think the thing about Leeds for me, and I can't remember if we've touched on it or not yet, is that it seemed pretty clear in the summer that they didn't want Farke and that they were looking elsewhere. Obviously, new investors with big ambitions and a sort of, as much as Greg Mitchell will want to slag them off, they've got a pretty big recent history of investment in football teams and success in their football teams and attracting high quality managers and progressing with them. So it just feels to me like that sort of undermined the whole thing in a sense. I just think if it's clear that your football team don't really want the manager and that they would have gone elsewhere if they had a better option, I think that has an impact. And also, I think the expectations are a bit mad. You look at their team. I'm not really sure where the quality is that's supposed to be doing anything more than desperately fighting to not be in the relegation zone. I think based on the quality of sides on paper, Burnley and Leeds are sort of obvious bottom two fodder, and to not be there is pretty good going. So I sort of agree with what Tam said. I just think there's an air of inevitability about it, and because they've always seemed to have a sort of minimal amount of confidence in him, I would have thought they'd go relatively quickly when that run of results turns bad, if indeed it does.
West Ham are probably the rogue team in here, Temp. So, a couple of good wins at home. We know they've got a good manager in Nuno. They've got some good players. Nuno seems to have changed their midfield a bit and bought Potts in, who sounds like a decent player, and Fernandez. So maybe they've turned a corner. But then again, you look at these fixtures for the people listening or watching: Bournemouth away, Liverpool at home, Man U away, Brighton away, Villa at home, City away, ranked as the most difficult run on this graphic. What are you saying for West Ham in the next 6?
I don't think anybody saw their recent run coming. Fair play. If Nuno gets them going, I'll support his efforts in doing that off the back of what he did for our club. But that's a punishing schedule, isn't it? Bournemouth away, Man U away, Brighton away, and Man City away, Liverpool and Aston Villa at home. That's not a run of fixtures you want when you're trying to build on the momentum that you've gathered. That said, do they have it in them to spring surprises? Of course, they've done it a couple of times in recent weeks. They've got Jared Bowen in there, who we haven't mentioned, who's been a consistent goal scorer in the Premier League and has won his fair share of games. So I suppose the prediction that I'm least confident in, despite having restricted them to 2 points on the form that I sent to you. But yeah, there is an eye on them, isn't there? Because they could upset that apple cart if they were to be relegated from the Premier League. I think it would be the biggest setup to be relegated since Newcastle United. There is a feeling amongst West Ham fans of having a bit of a right to operate in higher quarters of the Premier League table than the facts would suggest. So, big fan of Nuno. Hope he can turn them around. That said, I've predicted 2 points, whilst knowing that they have it well within them to upset that prediction.
And I agree I'll put this comment on the screen from James as well. Newcastle were absolutely hopeless in that game that West Ham won, and Burnley, we've discussed, are a poor team as well. So the two games they have won, fair play, obviously, can't take the points away. But I'm not getting too carried away with the actual quality of that West Ham team, even though I do think Nuno's a very good manager, obviously. Right, just before we come to our predicted tables then, from the points that we've all tallied up, a word for Global Telemetrics. We'll see you in 1 minute. Be warned, there's a very aggressive security dog and loud security dog in this video. So here we go.
Hello, everybody. Global Telemetrics Asset Recovery Team, repatriations team on the ground. Vehicle stolen over the weekend from the Staffordshire Force area, located in the West Midlands Force area. Vehicle found on false plates and also changed the identity. However, they failed to understand, the criminals did, that this vehicle is equipped with a covert tracking device, or two, maybe three. So when we say it pays to invest in security, this owner is going to be quite chuffed when he receives it back after it's gone to forensics, and maybe 2 or 3 bits of evidential bits for the police to continue with, because baddies, you may have left something behind. Anyway, pays to invest in security, protect what's yours.
Thanks, Global Telemetrics. Appreciate that. Small but loud dog. You can never tell, can you? But
That can't have been the same dog. There must have been a massive Alsatian.
Must have been. I don't know. Actually, I didn't think of that. But I thought
Is that video okay? If it feels like a bit questionable to talking about the evidence that's been left ahead of a potential court case or whatever.
Oh, don't say that. I don't want to crash a court case. Let's move on from that quickly. Right.
We've got to have a contempt of court at some point in the podcast, so might as well get started now.
Yeah, why not? All those ads are cleared anyway, so I'm sure it's fine. Right, let's do the predicted tables then. This is based on the tallies that everyone sent. So you can tell us if we're wildly optimistic, all doom and gloom, or how you feel about them. This is how we think the table will come Christmas. So Temps has got Fulham 15th, 19 points, Forest 16th on 16, Burnley 17th on 14. Then the relegation zone would be at Christmas, Leeds on 13, West Ham on 12, Wolves on 6. Is there anything you want to add, Temps, on how you're feeling about the way it's all going to shake out before Christmas?
Well, just that I'm no Rachel Riley, but 9 + 8 is 17. But you're not known for your detail, are you, Davies?
You've got the looks, if not the maths.
Yeah. Are the European games a factor, Temps, or not? Malmo and Utrecht, that's 2 extra games that we've got to play on these teams, or do you think we've got the squad to cope with it?
Yeah, it definitely is, because I think that we struggled a little bit in the Thursday Sundays we've had so far by picking too many personnel in both matches. We've had the injury to Woody, which is enforced at times, and then the suspension, which caused a problem. The omission of Taiwo and Amari Hutchinson, they've come back into the fold in a league sense. So I feel more confident now in the squad, and I think there was a reticence, certainly with in Ange's period in charge, to deviate too much from trusted players. So whilst I do think that we've learned our lesson in trying to pick too much of a similar side Thursday to Sunday, I suspect that we will now back our favourites on the Sunday and have a far bigger element of rotation and recuperation for the Thursday selection. So I'm expecting it to impact the European results rather than the Premier League results, given the situation that we find ourselves in.
Just looking at the fixtures, just a positive coming off the back of these European games. When we play Malmo, the next game is at home to Brighton. And when we play Utrecht, the next game is also at home to Spurs. So at least we don't have those long kind of Bournemouth-esque trips. I certainly think that hurt us. And I think Dyche has probably learned a little bit about the squad as well from team selection at Bournemouth. Right, this one should be Pete's. Probably got all the maths wrong, but assuming this is close to right, Pete has got Forest 15th on 17, Fulham 16th on 16, West Ham on 14, then a relegation zone of Leeds on 13, Burnley on 11, and Wolves on 5. So you'll probably tell me some of that's wrong, but anything you want to add, Pete?
Well, I can't be bothered to check the maths, so I'm going to assume that it's fine. You got Forest right this time, so that's progress.
That's something,
which is nice. I think the only thing that I'll add, because I didn't speak about West Ham before, is that 14 to me was, I've lost my thing now, but I think I'd given them 4 or 5 points, and that was entirely on the basis that they've got a manager who we know can pull those sorts of results out. I'm afraid I can't be anywhere near as magnanimous as Temps was about Nuno and West Ham, because I want West Ham relegated, and I want them relegated now. I'm sick of their endlessly grim recruitment. Just so many $100,000 a week footballers who turn up, stink the place out, and then go somewhere else. I dislike the owners. for reasons that do not need elaborating on beyond they're bad owners, not done a very good job in my opinion. And I should just add, in the light of recent Alan Sugar lawsuits, I should probably say I just don't think they're very good owners. Not anything stronger than that. And then also their rank football is fetid in that stadium that should be a national sporting monument, and instead it's just playing host to rubbish West Ham games. So I'm not very happy with them, and I don't want them in the Premier League anymore. So let's get West Ham down in that relegation zone. And as much affection as I've got for Nuno, I'm not going to be magnanimous about it. I want them, Burnley and Leeds going down. Forest climbing the table. 15th at Christmas I'll take, and then we'll go onward from there.
Another good comment from James. He's on a roll today. He mentioned we've got a cup tie before us, which I didn't realise. They do play Newcastle away in the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup. So it'll be interesting to see how much Silver gambles on that, because I reckon their fans will want them to go for it, depending on the league table. So that is a small extra factor in there as well. Just lastly, this is what I've got. Fulham 15th on 19 points, then us on 17, Leeds on 13, West Ham 12, Burnley 11, Wolves on 4. It's interesting. I mean, if we're 5 points outside the relegation zone at Christmas, I'll be feeling very confident. I think that's, as much as I'm saying we can get 8 points from this run of games. If it does shake out that we see the teams around us really stink the joint up, which is very possible with the fixtures they've got, then it could change dramatically. It is kind of wishful thinking, and it isn't an exact science, and there will be surprise results. But I think the general principle of the teams around us have got some really tough games does stack up here. So if we can do our bit and beat Brighton, I feel like that Brighton game feels really big actually. If we can beat Brighton at home, and if we can get a point at Liverpool, that'd be fantastic. But I'm certainly looking at that Brighton game. It feels like this could be a bracket of fixtures that really moves things substantially heading into the festive season. Right, just one quick other word. Dan Ndoye had a very good international break again, scored for Switzerland. A few people saying he's better on the left wing than the right wing. So I had a quick look at his stats. This is just Bologna last season, the balance of games. Played 26 games as a left winger, 3 goals, 5 assists. Only 13 games as a right winger, 6 goals though, 1 assist, and he played 1 as a number 10, and he can play as a striker as well. Pete, any thoughts on whether he's actually better on the left or the right, or do those stats suggest that maybe he's more of a goal scorer on the right, but he's a more effective player on the left? I don't know.
Yeah, when people started saying about him being much better on the left, I remember I sort of reflected on when we did the recruitment pod at the start of the season. I think I posted these stats I've mentioned these stats in that podcast. Personally, I think that what we're seeing is not that he's better on the left necessarily, but that he's playing in a system that suits him more. And that's not necessarily the structure of the system, but just in the areas that he's encouraged to get into. So I think with Ndoye at Forest, I think we've seen his work rate and his effort. There've been the odd sort of mistake or misplaced passes when he's in defensive areas, and there've been the odd hairy moment. But generally speaking, I think we've seen all that sort of stuff. We've also seen his ball carrying ability and his ability to progress us up the pitch, which the stats say he does pretty well for us. And I think while some people are critical of him and have been recently, I think we've also seen that he can glide past a man both ways, and he's put dangerous balls into the area. And I think actually we'd be talking about him in much more favourable terms had we had the ability to convert chances this season that we had last season. So where I'm at with Ndoye really is that, and it's the same place I was at when we signed him, I think that his potential sort of elite ability is goal scoring. And when you watch the videos of him in the past, what he does an awful lot of is drifting in off the wing, and when the ball's on the opposite flank, he's a real threat in the box. And his movement it's not extravagant, but he's always moving and always looking for space in those moments, or was. And when the ball comes to him and he's able to find the pocket, his finishing was really impressive, and often quite sort of improvised finishes, lots of different types of finishes. I think he's a real natural goal scorer. We've seen bits of that, in the Leeds game, he was cutting off the right and getting shots off quickly. And that's a sort of profile of player that I think we need, because we don't do an awful lot of that. But my instinct really is that the issue isn't which wing he's positioned on as a sort of starting position, but really how we try and get him in the box as an extra threat, whether that's just drifting off into central areas or whether it's, finding that darting run when the ball's on the opposite flank. I think he's got potential to have a lot more impact for us than he is having. I also think he's actually doing relatively well in the grand scheme of a pretty terrible season so far. But yeah, that's where I'm at. I think there's a sort of skill set that we're not really utilising as much as we could right now, and probably because of what you've often talked about, Matt, in terms of the work that wingers have to do under Daesh in terms of staying out wide and doing a lot of tracking back and all that sort of stuff. So I think we could tweak it, and I think he could add more for us. But at the moment, he's not having that sort of responsibility like he did for a previous club at international level.
Quick question from Rad here. When is Woody back? Daesh sounded optimistic that he'd be back. He mentioned Leeds, so I would hope he's back after this international break. Him not going away with New Zealand would hopefully mean we see him, but press conferences are later in the week, probably Thursday. In fact, I'm sure it's Thursday if we're playing Liverpool on Saturday. Just lastly then, Thames, comment here, Ndoye would be better for us on the left. We need Hutch on the right. Is that, a lot of people say that, I'm not questioning it necessarily, but is there some recency bias in that? And Callum Hudson-Odoi and Ndoye are probably still first choice pairing for you and for Daesh, or how do you see that?
Callum's my first pick winger, and he starts on the left whenever we're able to name a side that can accommodate that. So Dan Ndoye is, for me, the other starting winger on the right-hand side. If Callum falls out the side, Ndoye to the left, Backer and Hutchinson battle it out for the right. If we can see a 90-minute performance from Amari Hutchinson that reaches the levels that he impacted the game against Leeds, he's going to be breathing down Dan Ndoye's neck for a starting place very, very soon. I thought he was excellent. Found the space, worked hard. His delivery for Morgan's goal was top quality, and that bodes well for the levels that Ndoye needs to maintain to even stay in the side, irrespective of the debate around where he's going to play. So I think best 11 for me at this moment in time: Hudson-Odoi on the left, Dan Ndoye on the right. But Amari Hutchinson's coming for them, and he's going to have to raise his game and his consistency if he's going to keep that spot.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting when Amari Hutchinson starts a game, how he does, and if he gets a run in the team. If he starts, I don't think he'll start v Liverpool. I think we'll see the same starting 11. But if he starts v Brighton, to see what he can do, then will be really interesting. Because obviously we've mentioned Europe. It feels like Hutchinson, you should use him as a starter in a Premier League game, and then have Hudson-Odoi play in the Europa League because of how the squad is. So that's going to be a really good question, I think, to see. Right, just before we wrap things up then, appreciate everyone being with us. Over 300 people now where we've, talked some waffle, but hopefully it's been interesting. Do us a favour, hit like, hit subscribe, consider membership or Patreon, or a lovely 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. We'll be back. I'm not sure if we're going to do anything tomorrow. Certainly on Wednesday or tomorrow, or there'll be a gap on Wednesday. But anyway, I'm speaking to James Belshaw tonight. He's going through some footage of our attack, our defence, and Matt Sells. So always value his thoughts and analysis. And then obviously we'll have Liverpool preview stuff later in the week. Pete, anything you want to add before we go?
No, nothing else. Thanks. I've enjoyed it despite having almost nothing to talk about. So thank you for that. And thanks for everyone who's joined us.
Very Forest focused that we've had nothing to talk about, and we've done 59 minutes and counting. Temps, anything you want to add?
Just if we do find ourselves in the bottom three at any point, we need to get the Premier League to employ you to redraw the table and just get us out there in the stroke of a pen. Do you remember when North Korea qualified for the FIFA World Cup and they were losing 4 and 5-0, but by all accounts, the newspapers at home just said they'd won, and that was enough for the loyal subjects. I think that's the way out. Yeah,
I think Kim Jong-un's played one round of golf and he was 38 under or something, and had 13 hole-in-ones or something.
Were you his caddy? Were you doing the scoring for that?
Well, you're going to score him lower than you got, aren't you, when it's him, certainly. Just quickly, one other word. Congratulations to all the Forest supporting Irish Island fans, or Irish Forest supporting fans, I should say, especially Chris Aylmer, who was messaging me in giddy fashion the other day about Troy Parrott's hat-trick. Pretty remarkable.
What a finish to that game.
I know. That's why you love being a football fan, isn't it? I mean, I hate international football. Some of the times it's boring, but that certainly wasn't. So congratulations to all the Irish Forest fans out there, certainly. Right. Thanks to Pete. Thanks to Temps. Do us a favour and hit like if you haven't already. And if we don't see you tomorrow or Wednesday or whenever, then we shall see you soon.